Did I get all the buttons? Hi, everybody. Hello. Welcome to Tuesday training. Welcome to Tuesday training. Hello, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here. Please come in. It's nice to see you. Please come on camera if you're able and on audio. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Lori. Hello. I'm glad you're all here. Here we are again for another training for practitioners, Tuesday training. That's what we're up to here. I'm Gina, I'm your host. Hey, Lori, nice to see you. I am your host for the hour, here every week to pour into you. I'm happy that you're here. Practitioners, please use the chat. Let us know where you are in the world and what type of practitioner you are, whether you are a movement practitioner or a manual practitioner, what you're up to in the world and where you're doing that. I would love to hear it. I don't always remember to ask that every week, but I certainly love our community. So, and if you're watching on the replay, same. I still want to know who you are and what you're up to in the world. So please share that with us in the comment section. We're here every Tuesday at noon Eastern as practitioners, as a tribe, as a community to support ourselves in client work and muscle knowledge and functional anatomy and all the things that go with being a successful practitioner. So thank you all for being here. I love it. And I am, if I've not met you before personally, I am your host each week. I'm Gina Schatz, developer of the Schatz method. I am both a manual and movement practitioner. I've been working clinically for 30 years. Can't believe it. Can't even believe that number. And during that track, I developed my own method of how to alleviate pain at the source so that I could go on to doing the movement and the manual work that I was up to. And I train other practitioners to do the same thing. So that's super fun. Inside of our community, we have not only that mastery track of the Schatz method itself, but we also have these Tuesday trainings each week. We have an entire library of continuing education for functional anatomy. We have an amazing anatomy advocacy group of practitioners who volunteer each week to support practitioners. So it's really a connected community, even though we are in different places in the world and up to different things. I love this. There's a second Lori Myers coming in right now. So Lori, someone's using your link. I can hardly wait to see who it is.
I bet it's Val.
I was just going to guess the same thing.
I know. I almost. I knew it.
Hey, Val, it's nice to see you as Lori Myers coming in.
I know.
I was guessing it was you as we were waiting for your camera to come on. And some of us do know each other because we show up here every week, and some of us know each other because we're in the mastery track together, and alumni and graduates also participate. So it's really just an awesome group and of beautiful practitioners. Our community is pretty strong and connected, which I love. And so here we are. For another Tuesday training. This month, the month of September, we've been working on muscles in our Tuesday training because we're also working on muscles in our year-long track, which is fun and infuriating all at the same time, depending on what lesson you're on, I'm sure. We decided that Tuesday training was a great place to also add in some muscles. And now we're at the end of the month. So I'm calling today our muscle mashup. We're going to do a little muscle mashup. How's that sound? Good? Yeah. Okay. So before I dive into the material I want to share with you, are there any questions? Do you guys have any questions that you came in with today? I feel like this is like an official group training. That's usually what I ask at the beginning of group training. Did you come with any questions today for Tuesday training? And if yes, and you're not ready to ask them, that's totally okay too. You can always ask them as we move on. And also, I just want to mention, if you're here for the first time, feel free to use the chat feature. If you can't come on camera, if you're not in a place where you have headphones and you can speak into the mic, certainly use the chat feature at any time and let me know if you have questions. Also, if you're watching on the replay, let me know if you have questions because I will directly answer them for you. I'm happy to. Okay, so any questions on the table for us going in? No? Okay, so far this month, we talked about the rotator cuff. We talked about function of muscles. We talked about terminology and body landmarks so that we could use that to support us in our muscle knowledge. We talked about stabilizing muscles and intrinsic muscles. We talked about specific joint actions and muscles that do those joint actions. We covered a lot. So whether you were here or not. In those weeks, you can always go back and watch the replay, whether you were here or not. You can watch it for the first time. You could watch it any unlimited amount of times. And we're using all of that information that we already covered this month, and we're doing a mashup. So today it's going to be super exciting. We're going to do pop quizzes for the whole hour. Panic ensues. Val's like, why am I logged on? Now I'm visible. I can't log off. No, I'm just kidding. It's not going to be like that. What we're going to do, it sounds like pop quizzes for sure, but we do digestion a lot in our training. We do digestion in group training. We do digestion in all of our recorded courses in our academy. And the reason for digestion is so important. Like, it's such an important piece of digestion. And we also use the same concept of digestion throughout the training. So I know what my messaging is on digestion. Is anybody here interested in sharing what the value is in digesting? What is the value of digestion? I don't mean digesting your dinner. I mean like digesting the material while you're learning. You guys know why we do that? Because sometimes it can feel like a pop quiz, but it's really not about a pop quiz. Val, you're muted. Yeah, I don't know if you're on an iPad or a phone, but tap the screen and your control panel should show up so that you can see your mute button.
Okay, now I know where the video went.
That's the video. The audio should be somewhere nearby.
Okay, well, I got a new screen. It's on my phone, which is different than my iPad. Anyway, repetition and looking at things in a different way. So the refreshing of the repetition and possibly presented in a different way. So therefore.
Yeah, those are two awesome nuggets for digestion. Hi, Cheryl, welcome. Repetition is the way our brain gets the game, right? So the more you hear it, the more you hear it, the more you hear it, absolutely. And when we're digesting in a group, also somebody else might say something and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. And see it a different way, hear it a different way. What else would be the reasons, the benefit, value of digestion?
I was going to say about when somebody else says something, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, that's right. And I think for me, when I digest, it distills down, because usually digestion is just like one or two little nuggets. And for me, it'll distill down what really landed, what my aha. And I'm like, oh, why did that land so hard? Like, it's really cool. And it also, I just thought of this as well. It feels like a little endorphin hit because I'm like, oh, I know this. Like, it feels like I know it also, even though I might have just heard it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Digestion does trigger the reward system in the brain. So especially if you're up to something that feels meaty or heavy or challenges your confidence, or you're like, oh God, I don't really like this topic. Why do I have to learn it? Because you have to, because you're a body person. Whenever you can add the reward system into the learning, it makes the learning more potent for sure. So, and that's what I meant when I said along the way, if we do a little review. So this is what I noticed in teaching, right? Because teaching is its own skill. And I know you all know that because you're teaching your clients to do a certain thing or to know a certain thing or stop doing a certain thing, right? And there gets to be a way where you message it where it matters to them. And so when I'm teaching a big body of information like muscles, it's valuable if I weave into that teaching something that they already know, right? Something that you all already know. So, okay, we did this, we talked about this, we learned this. Brows start to furrow, notes are being taken, people are getting a little quiet. Go back to what we already talked about, that everybody had a way in when their smiles were back on their face, where their eyes were bright, where they were looking up from their notes. Great. Now the reward system kicks in, which makes it more palatable to go into something that's a little heavier or might challenge your learning. God bless you. So that's also digesting, right? And what I mean by the content is serving your nervous system in your learning, serving the nervous system of your clients as you're teaching them something new, especially if they've already come in with their nervous system a little sympathetic because they're in some pain, right? They can't really hear everything that you're saying. They actually want you to stop talking and get to the doing because they're in pain, right? So how do we bridge that gap between their nervousness or their sympathetic state and the information that we get to do next with them that might feel challenging? Trigger the reward system. That's how to do it. Okay. So pop quizzes might seem like pop quizzes, or they could be reward systems. What I already know. It depends on your perspective, right? Perspective is everything in life. So with that in mind, what is the value? So I already asked you, what type of practitioner are you? Movement and manual practitioners alike all get to learn muscles in the body and the function of muscles, I would add. So what do you see as the value for learning muscles? Whether you are a manual or movement practitioner, whether you've been here for all the training Tuesdays this month or not, or if it's just your first one, what do you think is the value in knowing muscles? Or if you haven't learned muscles yet and you know it's a gaping hole, which is fine, what do you think the filling the hole would create? What would the value be for you in learning muscles? So any way that question lands for you, wherever you are in your professional track, why muscles? Why muscles? Cheryl.
Helps you to understand movement, how the body moves.
Helps you to understand movement, how the body moves. Awesome. Anything else, Lori?
Yeah, I was gonna say it feels like when I'm teaching and massage, I feel more confident if I know it. I speak more clearly when I know it. Even if I, don't say the quads, I'll say the muscles on the front of the leg, and then I'll say quads. Like it just, I feel more confident. I feel grounded. I feel confident. It lands with some of my peeps, like, muscles on the front of the quad will land differently than the or muscles on the front of the thigh between the knee and your hip, like showing them, and also saying quads. So it's like, oh, they get to, figure that out too.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we're more confident, or when we are confident, then we get to really serve. Yeah. Especially if we're navigating people in pain. We can't be nervous if they're nervous. Like that's just like not, it doesn't work, right? We got to be like, yeah, I got you, right? I got you. So confidence for sure. And also, Cheryl, I love that you said learning movement. And yes, and I want to make a really clear distinction here, because this just came up inside our community in a different conversation, that manual practitioners feel that they don't know enough to resolve pain permanently unless they're also movement practitioners. And that is not true. That is not true. And I know that because the method, SHOTS method, serves both manual and movement practitioners. And if it serves them both, it means you could be either. Okay. But here's the distinction. It's just a word and the meaning that we put to the word. So as you said, Cheryl, that learning muscles helps us identify how the body moves. Absolutely. And I want us to be super clear that it's how the joints move. And what we're not confusing that with was that then you must be a movement practitioner in order for muscles to be something you should know, or that you have to become a movement practitioner in order to address the muscles. That's not true. However, movement practitioners do know movement in the body, like how things move, but they don't always even identify joint action. So knowing how the body moves and how to tell someone to move doesn't actually always translate to, I know the joint action and the muscle that's doing that joint action. So that, I thought that is like a really worthwhile distinction. And the same thing with manual practitioners. I'm both. So I have lots of regard and love for all of us. Manual practitioners do a lot of the work. Their clients aren't doing the moving. The manual practitioner is doing all the work. And the key is that manual practitioners would work easier. Their work wouldn't be so hard if they did know the movement, the joint actions and the muscles that do them, because that's what they're actually working on, right? Because all pain stems from not being in alignment or not using the body the way it's designed. So we need to know how it's designed. We need to know the joint action and the muscles that do it, AKA movement, in order to resolve pain. But that doesn't mean we have to be movement practitioners to resolve pain. So I just wanted to emphasize that as we get started here. Because sometimes we can use a word in two different ways and then we're off to the races on a different meaning about it. So yes, back to you, Cheryl. Yes, muscles, knowing muscles identifies the movement that's happening in the body, meaning it's joint action. And all muscles create movement at the joint. That's where movement happens. So we do get to have the joint action and the muscles that do that joint action. up until now, and still, even now, I should say, I find it easiest to learn the joint actions first so that we can see the movement happening in the body. And again, I'm going to keep double phrasing myself when I use the word movement, because I think I might have created some of the confusion in using the word movement a lot. So if I see movement in the body, what I'm identifying is the joint action, not the body moving, but the joint action that's happening in the moving. Okay, so if we're identifying the joint action, I find it easiest to learn that first and then get clear on the muscle, the main muscle that's doing the job, and then get clear on the other muscles involved in the job being the movement, the joint action. I find that to be the easiest way. And coming from a manual background, it was definitely easier because we learned all the muscles and all of their attachments, and it felt like a slog. Putting any knowledge into context helps us learn the content. So just memorizing 600 muscles and their attachment points, which is now at least 2 attachment points per muscle, sometimes more. That's a lot, 1,200 attachment points. Just learning them all, like rote memorization, doesn't give us as practitioners any context to use all that data. We don't need to be more data drained. We just need to know what to do with the data, right? That's part of the implementing, it's part of the confidence, it's part of the applying what you learn, the applicable part of the knowledge. So I, again, am going to reiterate, I learned all the muscles and I learned all the attachment points, but until I learned the movement that they did, they didn't stick. And as soon as I learned the movement, I soared with the data. Could it be because that was now my 3rd go around? Sure, we've already talked about that. Like when you digest and the brain learns in repetition, for sure. But what I believe about all of us that show up here is that this isn't your first rodeo. You're already qualified, you're already licensed and certified and whatever. So that could be your 2nd or 3rd go around too on muscles. And I really recommend joint action first. Joint action, the main guy that does the action, and then the other guys that help the action, AKA movement. Okay, cool. How's that sound? Is that landing for you guys? Is like, yep, I heard that before and it sounds like a good plan. Okay, cool. So then my next question for you is, what is the main guy that does the action? What's the main muscle creating the joint action? What's the main, not the name of the muscle. Let me ask a super clear question. The qualifier, the category.
Prime mover?
Prime mover. Yep. It can also be called
The agonist.
the agonist. Yep. So those are interchangeable terms, prime mover or the agonist, prime guy.
Found that. I found the button. I kept saying agonist.
Okay, now we can hear you. Okay, good. You got your controls under wrap. Okay, cool. Yep, agonist or prime mover. And when I talk about them, I say the main guy doing the job. Yep. And so cool. So what is the job? What is the agonist and the prime mover doing? So we know that he's the main guy doing the action. What's the action?
Contraction.
The action is contraction, right? The action's contraction. So if we can have these phrases that help us along the line, then we'll get to the whole body of movement with reciprocal inhibition and all the guys at play. Let's keep ourselves in the step that we're in. So the action is contraction. And so my next question for you guys in our digestion mini pop-up quiz mashup of muscles, do muscles pull or do they push?
Pull. Pull.
Pull? They pull.
Contraction, the pulling.
Pull, you would think. Okay, cool. How do you know that they pull? What do you know about muscles and the joint actions?
Well, contraction brings things together.
There you go.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, the insertion of the muscle towards the origin holds it together, creates the joint action.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Super important to remember. Seems simple in your pop quiz, by the way, A+ for everybody. Seems simple in theory, but when we start getting into clinical work, and or teaching movement practitioners unite, we often slip into teaching stretching or doing the stretching if you're the manual practitioner. And I just want to emphasize that we've already established that's not the action. It's a response to the action. And why does that matter? Why does it matter? Like, why am I just like being like particular about it? Or is there, try not to give you the answer with my question. If we're practitioners working on functional discrepancies and alleviating pain, why does it matter that we know that the action is contraction and that that's origins and insertions moving closer together, that that's where the action is? Why does that matter if you're remedying pain?
You
Yeah,
want to be able to identify if that particular muscle is doing that action, or
exactly.
if something else is doing it in response to, not being able to. It's not being able to do its job.
That's exactly right. It's not able to or not willing in the moment, who knows, but it's not doing the action. Exactly. And the reason that's important is because of what we already established. Pain comes from being not in alignment or not using the body the way it's designed. And so we're just going to review here again. We have decided and confirmed that the design is muscles do the work being contraction. Contraction creates the action at the joint. Primarily, the stretching part is the response to the action. So if we're teaching stretching, or we're stretching out our clients, or we're lengthening muscles, which is moving origins and insertions away from each other, nothing wrong with that, by the way, as a treatment tool, as long as we have first identified the action and whether it's happening. Because pain, again, comes from not using the body the way it's designed. And the design is contraction. The design is the joints move, muscles contract to create the movement. They lengthen in response, but the action is contraction. So sometimes we get a little bit like, oh, I don't know. I feel like it's tight. I should just stretch them. I should stretch them. Sometimes, most of the time, no. Because again, when we're working on, just repeating it, when we're working on pain and functional discrepancies, what we're working on is the body not being used the way it's designed. There's no command from the brain that says, go stretch now. But there is a command from the brain that says, go contract now to get the job done. The job being movement, joint action, done by contracting muscles. Sometimes just that alone can dramatically change how we address what we're up to when we're working with someone. Yeah. Okay. How's that landing for you guys? Is that review for you? Or you're like, yep, I get it? Or still confused?
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's good.
Yep, makes sense. Yep.
Okay, Val?
Because when it's not working, it is inhibited. So why is it inhibited? That's what we need to find out.
That's it, Val. That is where you go. Oh God, I'm so glad you said the why. I wrote down why on my notes today to remember what order I wanted to walk you guys through. I wrote down why 7 times, just in bullet points. Why? There's a place in childhood development. I know this sounds like I'm just totally squirreled off track, but in my undergraduate degree, I had a dual major and one of them was psychology. And I remember taking childhood development and thinking, oh my goodness, that's a full-time job to raise another human. Like their brains aren't even formed. And that's what the psychology class was about. And in the development of human beings, human brains outside of utero, there's a certain phase where we get to where everything's a why. They want to know all the information and everything's, but why? And it's around the age of 4. And if you've ever been around a little person around that age, but why is the sky blue? Because God made it that way. But why did God make it that way? And you're like, I don't have any more answers, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we can stay in that stage of development while we are also experts in body work, and get to so familiarized with the why, but why, but why, but why, you will get to the answer. You will solve the source of the pain. And in order to have a foundation of incessant whys, you got to know the anatomy, right? If you know that muscles move bone at a joint, they move it through contraction. Contraction is insertion to origin. And something's gone awry in the movement. Something's gone awry in the function, or there's pain. Just as you stated, Val, rather than going, okay, I must do something, but why? How did that movement get off track? How did that muscle stop contracting? Why is a different muscle doing the work? What's wrong with the first guy? Right? Why does that joint action not look like joint action? Why is this other joint moving when this one's the one that's supposed to? Why? If you can keep asking yourself why, not to make yourself crazy, but to answer it inside your own thought, but why, and then answer it, but why, and then answer it. If you can keep answering the why is that happening or why isn't that happening, you'll get to the source. And you won't spend your time dizzyingly spinning around yourself for the 60 minutes you have your client. It might feel slower at the beginning. It might feel like a lot more talking than you're used to, a lot more thinking and quiet time than you usually allow yourself. But the work that you do will be so efficient because you'll be like, right to the source of the problem and then alleviate it. And all that from our talk on muscles, believe it or not. Absolutely.
Sometimes it's a nerve issue.
Yep. And are muscles part of the nervous system, Val, or are they separate?
Yeah. But what I'm saying, working with the chiropractor, tricep, if you can get it to fire and it won't stay firing, if they have a C4 issue, there's damage to the nerve. Oftentimes. Sometimes.
Yep. And I would put that back in the class of alignment. So if the body's out of alignment, if the body's out of alignment, it'll suffocate the space that the nerve needs to innervate, and that will cause the muscle to not fire. So we're back to alignment again. Alignment and function, alignment and function, alignment and function. Cool. I feel like if we simplify it, guys, it can be so simple. If the body's super complex and amazing, and we get to make it super simple because we can create great results. We don't have to let ourselves be overwhelmed with each step. Okay. So questions, anybody, anything? Okay, so that's our review, what we covered so far this month on muscle function, right? How they're designed, what they do, where they do it, why it's important to know that. And then we moved on to some specific muscle groups. You guys have anybody that was here in another training Tuesday this month happen to recall any of the muscle groups that we went over that really landed for you? I'm asking because it's softer on your nervous system if I ask you what you have rather than giving you more data. So it might feel like a pop quiz and a hot seat, but it's actually loving. Any muscle groups come to mind that you recall in the last week or two? 3, actually.
Yeah,
Rotator?
I know we did
Rotator
shoulders.
Yeah.
Yep, rotator
Yeah,
cuff, Cheryl.
yeah, that
And Lori,
landed.
yeah, and you said shoulder, Lori? Is that what you said? You guys
I did because of the rotator cuff.
Rotator cuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Did Cheryl
Good.
say shoulder and we talked over, or rotator cuff and we talked over each other? Oh, good.
Yeah, just
So
at
I
the
said
same time.
joint. Cheryl caught us with the muscle. Rock on. Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, great. So let's just do our quick review on rotator cuff because that's hot topic. Perfect. So how many muscles make up the rotator cuff? 4. Yeah, look how easy that was. Don't you already feel like, yeah, I know rotator cuff. I got this. Great. And does anybody remember the acronym of the 4 muscles?
Sits. Yeah.
Sits. Yeah. And that's just helpful to help us remember the names of the muscles.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't have to know it sits, like you don't fail rotator cuff if you didn't know that acronym. But the next question, like after 4 muscles, what are they? Is usually what comes next. Just do the acronym first and give yourself a little leeway to then maybe guess the names of those muscles a little quicker. Okay, great. Why did I share with you guys that origins and insertions matter in broader scope and in the specificity of the attachment points and the names of the bony landmark that they attach on. Why did I tell you guys that the general attachment matters, but not necessarily the name of the bony landmark? To me, why did I tell you that?
For how it moves, how the muscle is moving the bone.
Right.
Or the,
Right.
Yep, or the action, exactly. We're back to that. So could you know the names and spellings and the Latin meaning of all the muscles and the name of the bony landmark where they attach and be proficient? Absolutely. High five yourself if you get there, for sure.
Mhm.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that we'll then get back to the action that the muscle does.
Mhm.
Right? It's supposed to. Again, I learned all the origins and insertions too, but there was no context for that content. So I would rather you guys learn the actions that the muscles do, even if you don't even remember the name of them, and save yourself, put last on your memorization list the names of the bony landmarks that they attach on, and instead spend more time on where is that muscle relative to the joint. Because I know the muscle pulls. So if it's going to pull two ends towards each other, this is the action it's going to create. Because the action is contraction, and that's what I'm up to resolving if I'm up to resolving pain and getting to the source of that. Okay. So again, I didn't say don't learn things. I just said there's an order that I think is most valuable to you so that you can put it to work. Okay. So with that said, does anybody remember the names of the rotator cuff muscles, the sits muscles?
Supra.
I know Val remembers. So Val, don't say Val will be my
Teres
backup.
minor.
What
Yeah.
you got?
I know.
Cheryl, say it one more time because I was talking.
Well, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor,
Yep.
and
So it's the bottom. It's
I know it. Subscapularis.
subscapularis.
There you go. Right.
Like that one, the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, beautiful. And I love that you knew it was minor instead of major, Cheryl, because we did talk about that in our training that we went over the rotator cuffs in more depth. And it's important to know, and it doesn't stop you from knowing fully how to support movement. So what is the movement of the rotator cuff? What's the phasic movement of the rotator cuff? What do those four muscles do?
stabilization.
What else do they do?
They also
Oh, that's the Phasic is movement. Sorry.
Sorry, Val, say it again. Valerie and then Lori. Say it again, Val.
I said Phasic is movement and the other is stability, right?
Yes, exactly. So we're talking phasic movement. We're talking joint action. So what is the joint action? The action is contraction. Those muscles contract. What movement do they create? What joint action do they create? So again, I'm interchanging movement again to joint action and contraction.
They do multiple actions.
Well, they do, three of them
They do
lateral
flexion.
and one does medial rotation, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, it's in their name. It's in their layman's name. Rotation, rotator. They rotate both medially and laterally. That's their main job. So that joint action is the movement that those muscles create when they're in contraction.
I wonder why we always land that they're stabilizers. Like I like Val said, they're stabilizers. Like I remember that being the first thing out of my mind too. And I'm like, but they also, of course, they're not just there to only stabilize. They do movement, but I wonder, yeah, interesting.
I have an answer
Okay.
because this came up in our group training in mastery as well.
Did it?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I got an email from one of our practitioners who was like, "Wait a minute, I thought it was supposed to be stabilization," and I was like, "Oh, good, I landed my message." So I am responsible for why you think stabilization when you think rotator cuff. It's me. I did it. I'm the problem. Here's why. The name of the sits muscles, the rotator cuff muscles, phasically is in their name. Phasically means the joint action they make. Okay. They do rotation, medial and lateral rotation. And when I was sharing with you in that Tuesday training about navigating rotator cuff injuries, pause here for a second. As soon as we hear injury, as soon as we hear dysfunction, As soon as we hear pain, we have to immediately go to it's not
Right.
aligned or it's not working the way it's supposed to. So when we talk about rotator cuff injuries are rarely that a medial or lateral rotation went awry. Their secondary job, which is typically when body workers become introduced to a rotator cuff, is to hold the humerus onto the torso. That's not a phasic joint action though, but it's a super hella important part of the rotator cuff that often gets overlooked. So what I shared with you all is that when clients come in to us, to me, to you, after having been through 6 weeks of physical therapy, nothing wrong with physical therapy. Typically what happens is to rehab the rotator cuff, they're going back through the rotation, the action of that muscle. They're doing medial and lateral rotation, which should strengthen those 4 muscles, absolutely, provided that the joint is aligned and that all the muscles are firing when they're supposed to. So if the exercises that the PT gives is from an aligned perspective, the client's aligned when they're doing them and they're targeting those muscles, it should work, meaning the strengthening of those muscles should work. The problem though, in the why did that even happen? Why did they tear a rotator cuff muscles? When I already said medial and lateral rotation is not typically where those muscles get in trouble. Back to what you shared with us, Valerie, but why did that become a problem then? Why were they in physical therapy? Because of their secondary job that often gets overlooked. We forget to know it or we don't learn it well enough. Those muscles, while they're in rotation as their primary job, when they're not rotating, they're holding the humerus onto the torso. Stabilizers.
Right.
It's typically when the stabilizing is awry,
Right.
from not being in alignment and not using the muscles the way they're designed, that create a tear, which is common, a common diagnosis in the rotator cuff. It's not from dramatic medial rotation. I slipped down the stairs and I immediately rotated my humerus so much that it tore my rotator cuff. You don't hear that. That's not usually when the injury happened. So we need to know that those muscles stabilize too, so that we can address it. Are they stable? Are they aligned? Because if they're not aligned, they can't be doing their job, primary job or secondary job. When folks come in with medially rotated shoulders as a pattern instead of an action, when they come in with protracted scapula as a pattern instead of an action, their body's not aligned. If they're not aligned, they're headed towards injury, potentially. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball to say it's guaranteed, but we know that an injury comes from misalignment or misuse, meaning not used the way we're designed. So look, and Cheryl's like, I'm gonna sit up. I'm gonna straighten up my, right. So then we're back to, why do we talk to folks about their alignment and their posture? Because we're preserving their rotator cuff for future injury. It's a preventive conversation, right? But we would only know that if we knew that they also do stabilization. Okay, so I did it and I make no apologies for that. If that's what you thought the rotator cuff's job was, yes, great. Especially as practitioners who are navigating pain and injury. Okay, how's that for a wrap up on rotator cuff? Fully
Excellent.
wrapped, mashed up and wrapped, feeling good about it? Okay, great. Any questions?
Yeah.
Anything coming up?
How do you maintain that proper? Because everybody working in front of their bodies at the computer all day, and it's a constant battle. Are we missing a secret key?
Yes, I love the question, Valerie. So for the first key is to recognize that folks are chronically employing their body in a way it's not designed. Is it, let me be really thoughtful. Someone's like, what do you mean it's not designed? You just said it does medial rotation. Yes, sustained hold postures, that's not the design. Are we designed to do medial rotation of the shoulder and protraction of the scapula? Of course, we have a whole host of muscles that says that's how we're designed. Sustained hold is the key. And so what's the missing part? It's everything you're learning in mastery, Valerie, right? So the first thing we know, what?
To put it into place, staying there, staying in this proper posture is so hard
Why is it hard?
because of the way the world works, and we're so anteriorly minded in our work.
Well, that's just programming, but what's the mechanical or functional reason why it's challenging? What do you know about the body's design that makes that challenging to sit upright?
The weaker muscles.
No.
Gravity.
Gravity.
That
Mhm.
too.
That one.
Yeah, because gravity has its hand in which muscle type? There's two categories of muscles. What is
Intrinsic.
Yeah, the intrinsic muscles, which by the way, are not the muscles we typically learn when we're learning muscles.
Right.
Full reveal, I didn't learn intrinsic muscles until probably 10 or 15 years after being licensed. And I was looking for them on my own. I was like, I must have missed something. I went back to all my anatomy books. I'm like, I must have missed something. We're not taught them, but we learn them in our academy. We definitely learn them in our mastery track. It's a big deal, learning intrinsic muscles. Intrinsic muscles do posture and balance. If we're not balancing and we're not in optimal posture, we're not utilizing those muscles. If we're not utilizing those muscles for optimal posture, we're not aligned, which is back to the source of how did the pain injury get there in the first place? But why? But why? But why? Remember that line of questioning? We're back to that. So we don't want to blame anything outside of us, and we definitely don't want to be fearful or an enemy to gravity. I actually prefer that gravity be working because it allows me to sit here right now and look you in the eye. Like, I am not floating, my computer's not floating, like, I'm here, I got it. And I have a responsibility to the privilege of gravity. And that responsibility is to use my body the way it's designed. And as a practitioner, it's my responsibility to know how it's designed. Back to learning anatomy. If you know the design, then you can affect a problem if there should be one. So that's my answer to your question, Val.
Okay.
And then we get to learn effective messaging so that we can message that in an enlivened, uplifting, positive, but clear and direct way to our clients. I've said this before. When your clients come back week after week with the same pain, that's not something to celebrate because they're regulars and they trust you. It's something to notice that you haven't remedied the problem. And I know that that's not popular in a lot of like massage therapy circles, for example. And I still stand by that because massage therapy, a head to toe relaxation massage, is so incredibly therapeutic that we're even missing the window for that value by doing targeted work in one area of the body where there's pain over and over and over and over and over again. It means we never get them out of that pain cycle in that particular part of the body, so they don't get to the full body massage. That's actually stealing. So I stand by that. And we're back to, how do you teach them? You get to clear message it. Know your anatomy and what's going on, and then message it to them in a way that feels beneficial. Like, why do they want this information? Because they actually do want to be out of pain. They do want to get back to the full massage or the yoga without pain. They want to go back to group classes or whatever it is that you're up to with your people. Okay. Awesome. Any other questions? That was a good
question. It's more of a comment. I think that we sometimes think it's hard. Like, I always thought that sitting upright for long periods of time is hard. Well, what was hard about it is because my got tired.
Amen.
Right? That was what was hard. Like, sitting upright isn't hard. Nothing is hard. It's hard when our body is like, you haven't worked me for a while. And that's when I think that we think in our brains that it's hard, but it's really not. It's just like, oh, I've been neglecting a little bit of you, so let me do that. Because now when I sit upright, I can sit upright for longer periods of time. Yeah, but that, right. And that initial part was like, oh, woo, getting through that.
That is such an important distinction, Lori, that I'm so glad you brought that up. It's part of our message, part of what we get to know, and it's also part of the messaging we get to offer our clients, right? So perfectly stated. When we sit upright for the first time in a long time, when we bring our body's posture back to the design, right? Because if we're in alignment the way the body's designed and using the body the way it's designed, there will be no pain. So we recognize, let's say, for example, that our client's sitting is definitely the cause of their problem, right? Or it's not helping. And we bring them back to optimal sitting. Those muscles doing that job of uprightness away from gravity are now doing a job that they haven't done in a while, which means they are going to fatigue at first, but not forever. And that's the key in the messaging. When we offer folks optimal alignment for the first time, parts of them feel lighter and effortless, and other parts feel like, whoa, this is a lot of work. Using this muscle that I haven't used is now telling me that I'm working this muscle. And the client might think it's going to always feel like this. If I sit up in an optimal alignment, I will always feel this work happening. That's not true. Because when we use the body the way it's designed, there is no pain. It becomes effortless to sit upright, becomes effortless to sit upright. And we get to message that to our people. The way I message it is, wow, so your back feels fatigued right now. The muscles along your spine, AKA the muscles holding their spine upright away from gravity. The muscles along your spine are feeling fatigued right now. Yes, they are. I don't think I can keep doing this. And I tell them what I just told you. That's what they're designed to do. They just haven't been on board for a while. And what else has been holding you up? It's probably what's been causing your pain. So now I tie it back to them, a reason why they would bother, right? It's like, why would I do, if I was working out in a gym and I was strength training, why would I do a rep of 12 when I could stop at 8? Because 12 feels hard. If it's tied to something that matters to me, I'll get to 12. I'll groan, but I'll get to 12. It's the same thing with sitting. If sitting upright takes away the pain that I've been complaining about and missing out on opportunities in my life and paying a lot for a therapist to remedy for me, if that matters to me, I'll sit upright until it becomes effortless, because now my body is strong enough to do that job. The muscles that are supposed to do that job are now doing it, and they're strong enough again to do the job they were designed to do. And then there's no pain. It literally works like that. It's the interim window. It's the back and forth. It's what you said, Val, you know, this inherent programming that we have to be so anteriorly focused. That's really what's in the way. It's not the back muscles that are the problem. It's not using them the way they're designed that's the problem or the source of the pain. And we get to message that really clearly without taking a client through, you know, an entire anatomy course, because that's not what they're there for either. Just tie it to the benefits for them and explain it in a way that they understand, and they will be on board. The key for intrinsic muscles, because maybe you guys already know this one, maybe this pop quiz will feel really good for your nervous system. Because intrinsic muscles have a nemesis, which is gravity, and gravity's not an evil thing, it's not bad, we like gravity, but it is a challenge for intrinsic muscles. Then what does that mean for the investment, the time ratio investment in engaging intrinsic muscles?
All the time, every day, except when you're sleeping.
Yeah. Anytime you're opposing gravity, anytime you're perpendicular to the earth or any part of your body is perpendicular to the earth, either gravity's winning or your intrinsic muscles are strengthening. That's it. It's an either or. It's an all the time thing. It's an all the time thing. So I would say if there was anything that was hard, it would just be the constancy of it. But the actual work in upright sitting and using the muscles along your spine, for example, it's not hard. It might feel fatiguing at first till they're strong enough again. But the hard part is remembering that it's not a one and done. Human beings are very motivated by pain. If they're in enough pain, they will consider sacrificing their firstborn. It's incredible how motivating pain is. And when we're out of pain, we can forget what caused it in the first place. which is why I really think it's important for us as practitioners to get really proficient in messaging, because we hope our client doesn't come back with the same pain. I really do. I hope I don't see you again. I say that to a lot of people. I enjoyed working with you every minute of it. I wish you nothing but health in your life. And I kind of hope I don't see you again, because that would mean that this is working. And in order for that, what, Val?
But send me your friends.
But send me your friends. Yeah, but send anybody else in your life who isn't feeling 100%. Absolutely. Because there's more people that need us than there are those of us to serve. If we're in a scarcity mindset that our clients are going to go away because we resolve their problem, we need to have a good look in the mirror, because that is just not what we're up to, for real. There's plenty of people that need us, right? And our schedules should be overbooked with waiting lists constantly. And then we should be recycling through. If we're navigating resolving pain, not if we're navigating regular self-care and preventive type work. That's a different schedule for sure. So it's important to message when you know and have identified that intrinsic weakness is the muscle target for your client to get to their resolve. It's really important to message them. It's an all the time thing. And clients will ask me, well, how often do I need to sit like this? Like, do I do it like twice a day? Do I do it for 5 minutes? And it's such a super sweet question, because they have no idea. And it's like adorable. And so I get a little cheeky with them just to land the message. And I say, well, how often is gravity working? You know, kind of like what we just went through. And then they get the math. They're like, oh, this is like a lifestyle thing. Right, exactly. And I say, but you could start with a timer, give yourself 3 minutes, give yourself 10 minutes, give yourself every hour, check your posture. You know, you could give yourself demarcations in your schedule to remind you, because it is a constant, but it's constant, right?
Work your way there.
Work your way there, and then stay aware of it. Exactly. And then you'll be out of pain if this is what was the source of your pain. Absolutely. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so we got a little intrinsic phasic review in there too today in our muscle mashup. I love it. In the last couple minutes, any other thoughts coming up for you? Any other muscles you want us to review in your mashup? Thinking, let's give you nothing coming up. Okay, cool. All right, awesome. So I just
something's coming up, but it's a way longer thing, and I'll review it and we'll table it for another day, I think.
Really?
Yeah, just the obliques, the external and
let's give them
and how they relate to rotation. Like, that's been on the back burner to go back over because they confuse me. So that's longer than 7 minutes that we have. So anyway, maybe that's on the road. Yeah.
I appreciate you acknowledging that is more than 7 minutes. I will happily give the obliques a highlight next week. How's that in Tuesday training? Good? Okay. Because it would do it wouldn't do them any justice.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah. And I will review my notes too, because it might land different now. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. So so great. Thanks. We'll do that. We'll do them next week. If you come with them, Laura, we'll do them. I just wanted to offer before we wrap up for today, for those of you who are in the Muscles and Movement course in our academy, or considering coming into the Muscles and Movement course in the academy, it's an awesome course. We go through muscles kind of like what we just did here, a lot like what we just did here, but with a lot more meat in it. Each muscle, what it does, how to identify it, etc. That course has a study group that's happening inside our community, which I'm super excited to share with everyone. Again, I said at the beginning here that our community is pretty connected, and our graduates are spearheading a study group. So you don't have to be a graduate of the Mastery training program to be in the Muscles and Movement review course with advocacy and real-time support. And so I just wanted to offer that. It's happening there. I think they're starting next Monday, October 1st. Is Monday the 1st or is Tuesday the 1st?
No, I think it's Sunday, Gina.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is everybody actually, can I just pause here? Not pause, but I'll post it in, since you're throwing it out there. I know, throwing it out there to everybody. I can put it in the student lounge. If folks are in the Facebook student lounge, because I don't think it's there. Cheryl, are you in there on Facebook?
I'm in the student lounge.
Oh, perfect.
But I haven't taken the course.
Okay, that's okay, because I just want to put the information or support in putting the information where everybody has access to it. But if you're in the student lounge, I'll make sure that it goes in there for you.
Perfect, Lori, thank you. Yeah, so, and anybody who's watching on the replay, same thing. If you're interested in that course and you're interested in doing it with a whole gaggle of buddies who've already taken that course and graduated, so that you have some support and like tutors if you need them along the way, and just community. It's just, you know, online learning is so convenient and it's isolating. So our community is coming together this month or beginning of October to get the ball rolling on that super juicy course. And I just wanted to make sure that we announced it so that you knew it was happening, A, and B, you could participate. So there's that. What, Val?
Where are they doing the study group? In the Praetorium?
No, they're doing it over Zoom.
I think they're doing it on Zoom. I don't know if that's been, the logistics have been figured out, but I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, you can get the logistics though. Yep, all of that will be shared with you for sure. I know there's, I think, 8 people in the group so far, 7 or 8. So it's a nice group. And again, all of them have already, almost all of them have taken the course. I think there's just one person in that group who hasn't actually taken the course. So I also want to mention, if you heard that and you're like, oh God, I don't want to come in as the beginner, forget, stop.
Oh my God, we're all beginners muscles. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's just worth it to review it. And it's just helpful to review it with someone who's already been down that, so they can help you with like, where do I click and what do I do? It's not a competition, it's support. I'm telling you, it's the best support community I know of. So that's happening. Okay, my loves, it's been a pleasure to spend another hour with you in Tuesday training. I look forward to seeing you all next week. If you got value from this training today, I would love it if you liked it if you're on YouTube, or shared the YouTube link with somebody else who could also get some great value from muscles and function in movement. And I just really appreciate all of you being here and taking the time and investing in your training and education and playing with me for an hour, because it's one of my fun hours for the week. And until I see you next time, continue to do great work in the world.